The number one thing that I see right now with people that reach out to me and they're like, hey, I just found out about real estate, or I want to get involved, or I want to do deals, I want to achieve financial freedom, I want all the great things that come with that. What is the number one thing you think they're missing? Today on the Real Freedom Podcast, we are going to go deep into the mindset of an entrepreneur and a solopreneur. So if you're just starting out, this episode is for you. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what does it take to be an entrepreneur, some limiting beliefs that I see of a solopreneur, and really what it takes to build a business that runs without you so you can live anywhere you want in the world, achieve financial freedom, generate wealth, and have real impact in the world. Maybe you want to even join the Real Freedom community to learn how to scale your business and do deals month after month after month without your individual involvement. So, Corey, how are you?
Doing well.
All right. Pipe in here.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you've experienced some of this yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The number one thing that I see right now with people that reach out to me and they're like, hey, I just found out about real estate, or I want to get involved, or I want to do deals, I want to achieve financial freedom, I want all the great things that come with that. What is the number one thing you think they're missing?
Action.
Action. Boom. You nailed it. So 99% of those conversations go like, well, how are you? First of all, what are your goals? Well, I want to do this, this, and this. I want enough cash flow to quit my job, or I want to achieve wealth. Okay. What action have you taken to get there? This is about the time that I usually hear crickets. Well, nothing. I haven't started yet. I have a full-time job, but I guess I can call on sometimes in my free time. Okay, perfect. How are you planning on generating leads? Well, I guess I can do some cold calling. I guess I can do some door knocking. Guess what happens?
Crickets.
They don't do anything.
Yeah.
They don't do anything. And this is like, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here because I want you, the listener, to be successful. I don't want you to live in fantasy land and lie to yourself. I want you to actually have a business that runs without you. I want you to achieve financial freedom. I want you to have time freedom to spend time with your family and friends and do whatever it is you like to do and what your passion is. But it doesn't come without action and sacrifice. Are you an entrepreneur or are you a wantrepreneur? Period. So if you're coming and you're asking advice about how to get started and all this stuff, you better be willing to put in the work. By the way, I want you to succeed, which is why we created this podcast, which is why I created my YouTube channel. It is free content for you guys to consume to get started. So this is the place to start. Go and listen to the last 35 or so episodes. Go and listen to all of our content that we post on YouTube daily and start building up your mindset, your sales skills, generating leads so that you can achieve financial freedom. You can't just want something and then all of a sudden it magically happens. And the problem is people see this shiny thing because of all the real estate gurus on social media. And they're like, wow, that looks amazing. I really want to do sub-2 deals. I really want to do multifamily. I really want to get passive income. And then what happens? They realize that it's really freaking hard. And it takes a lot of work. And most people just ain't cut for it. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you know what makes you happy in your life and you want to stay comfortable, then this isn't for you. So stop lying to yourself and stop saying that it is. Just be honest with yourself. This is the analogy that it clicks for everybody. If fitness is not important to you, right? If you have other priorities in your life, that's fine. Do those other priorities. Don't do those other priorities and then lie to yourself and say you're going to go work out 4 days a week. Why do you do that? It's because you haven't come to terms with yourself yet. You haven't had that difficult conversation with yourself. You know what? I told myself that generating leads for real estate was really important to me and achieving financial freedom so that I could spend time with my family and friends and do whatever it is I want and volunteer more and have impact in the community. I told myself the last 6 months that that was important to me. What have I done to show it? A lot of times it's nothing. Or a lot of times it's they call for like 2 weeks and they're like, well, I talked to 10 people and they all said no, and now this doesn't work. No, you are just drastically underestimating the amount of time and action that it takes to do something new. If you're training for a marathon, you wouldn't on the first day or the first week go run 3 miles and be like, well, this is impossible. No. You would have like a 6 month or a year or even a 3 month training program where you ramp up over time. And you would have that end goal of running a marathon at the very end. So why do people treat entrepreneurship different? Why do they have different expectations?
Well, I guess in today's society, entrepreneurship is sexy. But it's sexy because they can post one thing and they're like, here's what you can achieve. And
Yeah.
so there's the goal. And you scrolled through and you saw somebody else achieve something else 5 seconds before. And it looks way easier than it actually is because it's just there. The end result is always presented. It's rarely ever the grind that takes to get there. And it's even if it is talked about, like they haven't gone through it.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part is like the getting kicked in the teeth repeatedly, and going through the suck to get to the end result because you don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah. And this is the hard part for people that are in the W-2 mindset. It's the inability to invest in themselves because they haven't put in the work to build up self-confidence. So what do I mean by that? If somebody's like, oh, what is the cost to join the Real Freedom Community? What is the cost of mentorship? It doesn't matter what it is. What is the cost to generating leads? You're asking the wrong question. I know why you're asking it, but you're asking it from a W-2 mindset. So here's the real question. What does it cost you to not know how to do 2 to 3 deals a month? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. So for you to think to invest a few $1,000s into a coaching program or into a mentor or into lead generation for yourself or your own marketing, like that is the real cost. You're just asking the wrong questions. And you have to change that mindset into, I'm not going to try this. Just like Master Yoda says, there is no try, only do or do not. And I can tell you, after all the people that I've talked to, hundreds and hundreds of people, that is the number one predictor of success is their mindset going in. Is this going to be something that you try, or is this going to be something you do until it works? If it takes 10 years, if it takes 20 years.
That's such a long period of time for people to think about.
Yeah, but why would you go half-assed into anything? This is the problem, is people go look, they blame the thing. Oh, let me start a cookie company. Oh, 6 months in, that's a lot harder than I thought. Yeah, there's not as good a margins in cookies. It's the thing. Let me go do coding and let me build some software. Oh, that's way too competitive, and there's companies that can pour billions into R&D and developers to just completely destroy you. Oh, that's not the thing. And they jump from thing to thing to thing, always thinking that the grass is greener and looking for ways to avoid the work. That's it. But every single level, every single boss, every single dragon that you have to slay, like there is no avoiding doing the work. Why don't people want to do the work?
That's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
And you generally have to say no to a lot more things you wouldn't anticipate.
Yes, you have to make huge sacrifices, right?
Mhm.
What are some things that you've had to sacrifice in your life?
Time is a big one. And
Yeah.
then where do you allocate that time? Is it to other hobbies, even ones you really enjoy doing? Like I love skiing and I don't ski nearly as much as I used to. Do I still make some time? Yeah. Time with different friends or different family or different activities or different like softball leagues, like things like that. You have to make the choice if that is how you want to allocate your time, or do you want to allocate it toward the thing that you're trying to work on?
And let's get into the real shit here. A month is 30, 31 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not February. Trick question. You agreed. How many days a month are you working on average?
Yeah, probably somewhere between, does any amount of work count?
Well, I mean, let's say to count as a work day, it's at least a half day.
Probably 27 to 28 right now.
Okay, so almost every day of the month you're working.
Some capacity, yes.
Okay, why?
Because that's what I care about right now.
Okay, why?
This is very different than when I used to have a mindset. So
Yes,
perspective is really important here.
it is, because both of us were W-2 employees working
Real-
as engineers.
Yes, and I came from a schedule. My very first job out of college had half-day Fridays every Friday.
Oh, yeah, I
It was
remember that.
freaking awesome as a W-2 employee, right? And then I went into a schedule that was 980. So like every weekend, like I might get a call or two, I might have a little project, but it was never required. But that was just time that was traded for other activities and other things. But I was thinking from it, like from a W-2, here's my dollar per hour I would generally earn. And then an investment in myself and something else would be like, how many hours of work did I trade for that thing? And it's really hard. And it took a long time to be like, I'm putting in many, many hours more now than what I did previously. And I have no idea when that's going to pay a dividend. And that's a really tough conversation also to have with people who are W-2 mindset, because they
Or your spouse and family, right?
yes,
Both.
very much so, because they're like, "Are you making money?" Not yet. Are you learning skill sets? Some people might ask that. Yes. Well, when are those skill sets going to pay off?
I don't know.
That's really tough.
You don't know.
Yeah, it's really, really tough.
But
And
this is the thing. If you did know, everybody would do it. That's the part that makes it equally exciting.
I really disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah, I think if most people knew how much work it actually was, they would choose not to do it. I absolutely agree that if somebody knew the amount of effort and pain you were going to have to go through to get there, most people wouldn't do it. Because it's the ignorance that allows you to put it in, because you put yourself in the situation where you have to keep going.
Man, that's so interesting.
I absolutely, disagree that, like, if you said, here's how many hours you had to put in to get this result proactively for people who came from a stable-ish W-2 they just didn't quite like, most people wouldn't choose to put in that action.
That's so interesting. I actually disagree. At Offer Now Idaho, we're looking to hire A players to run our organization and help us grow our business. Corey, why would somebody want to work with Offer Now Idaho?
Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to grow? Do you want to have people in your culture push you to be the best version of yourself? I do. And that's why I'm here. And in addition to that, do you want to have the chance at growing long-term generational wealth? That's all a possibility with a company that's small, cares about you, and wants you to be able to invest in real estate.
What's something that separates Offer Now Idaho from any other real estate company?
It's really rare to find a company that can help you get into a home. Sure, they might throw a few thousand into a 401k that you can access when you're 65. How many people are going to help you either provide a rental property or a shelter over your own head? Through our off-market home buying program, we assist our employees in buying properties once they've achieved certain levels within the company. And that's really unique to people because you get that asset. You get to do whatever you want with it. And you're buying an off-market discounted property to improve the quality of your life and your family's life.
Yeah, not only that, we offer benefits and we have a very challenging and high growth energy startup feel to our work environment. So we are looking for people that want to make over 6 figures a year. Right now, we have a $3,000 referral program. If you know somebody that's looking for a new role, we will pay you $3,000 once that person is hired by us and they hit their 90-day mark. So if you know of anybody that's looking for a new job or looking to change their life, shoot me a DM at RealRyanWeimer on Instagram.
Let's get it. I bet you do.
Yeah. Like if somebody said it's going to take you 10 years and I don't even know, I can't do the math, but let's just say 100,000 hours to get this net worth, this time freedom, this whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the question would be like, is that number high enough, or is what that get me high enough to sacrifice those hours?
Yeah, right.
But like for me, if I'm optimizing for a known outcome, it's much easier for me to just plug away. I know what I need to do. It takes all the uncertainty and anxiety out of it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, how quickly can I knock out those 100,000 hours? So for me, it's actually different. I would rather know than have all the uncertainty of not knowing, because the uncertainty is what keeps you up at night,
Mm-hmm.
where you're not getting good sleep and you're worried about how you're going to make payroll and invest into marketing, and your wife's upset at you because you thought things were going to happen sooner, and then somebody steals money from you and you're in a lawsuit to try to get it back and you're never going to get it back, and it sets you back and you have no control. Like those are all like, if I have a known outcome that I can optimize for, I would take that 10 out of 10 times.
I don't think most people would, because the sacrifice along the way is greater than what they give themselves credit for believing. And that's really tough for people to stomach. And I think at the end of the day, that's probably why a lot of people choose not to do it, or they get in and they stop, is because they've experienced that level of discomfort and they can't picture what that future is going to be like. And they say that the level of discomfort and sacrifice in this period of time does not equate to what I want in that period of time, because I don't believe in myself and I don't know that it's going to be certain.
This is such a fascinating conversation. So there's different levels of financial freedom for most people, but let's just say for the average person,
Mm-hmm.
if they went hard at finding deals,
Mm-hmm.
they could get to financial freedom, assuming that they keep their expenses in check and they're
Mhm.
working a job, maybe not a high-paying W-2 job, because then they're going to have to make that much more, but
Mhm.
just your average median household income, which in Boise, I think is like 75, 80K.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe a little bit more now.
Yeah, it's probably about there.
Okay. So how many deals would you have to do a year to replace 80K? Like 4?
When
Okay.
you're starting out, more than that, because you're going to negotiate skinny deals.
Okay, let's just call it 10.
Yeah, 10 deals
10 is
probably.
10 is more than a month. So that's less than one a month.
Mm-hmm.
For you to build up the skills and the level of action to get to 10 deals in a year per year,
Mm-hmm.
you can do that in 3 years. So do you think if people knew, if you went to somebody and said, it's going to take you 3 years and you're going to be able to quit your job that you hate, if you don't hate your job, then different conversation. But to have financial freedom, your own time, your ability to do whatever you want, you wouldn't trade those 3 years to be able to do that the rest of your life.
I don't think most people would.
Really?
Yep. No, because I don't think that most people would be willing to go to their spouse and say, honey, I'm actually not going to be able to attend our kids' soccer games for the next 3 years. Honey, I'm not going to be able to support you financially, and it's going to feel incredibly unstable for the next 3 years. And we might have to go live with our mom and dad to do so, because in case this goes wrong and I spend more on marketing, we're going to have to live with parents. Honey, I don't think we're going to be able to actually go through this conversation, because right now you're a school teacher, you're a nurse, you're whatever, or maybe you have a stable income, but we're accustomed to a lifestyle, and we're not going to be able to go out to dinner more than once every 6 months, because I'm going to be investing all my time and our money into this together. And this is the implication on what it's going to be for the next 3 years.
Mhm.
And they're going to look at that and they're going to say, 3 years. There's a lot of life that happens in that much time. And they're going to get 2 to 3 months in. And unless they'd had that conversation up front, which most people don't, then it's going to be why are you putting us through this pain? Because they couldn't picture the vision, and they probably weren't both bought in on it. Now, as a single person, like, who can live incredibly cheaply, sure. But most people aren't willing to have that conversation up front and like actually picture the sacrifice that it would take unless they're in an incredible amount of pain or stress already, because it's a want, not a need.
Man, I can see your point. But if it's a known outcome for me, we're trading 3 years for the next 60.
That's you. That's why I'm saying.
Yeah, I
You're not
know,
like
but that's why
everybody
I'm
else.
laughing. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
sure the listeners, like, you can drop a note below in the comments and say which side of the fence you're on. But yeah, I could be completely off. I like known things. You know me.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know something or there's an unknown, it causes me a lot of stress and anxiety because I have no control.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the action that I put in has no bearing on the outcome. I don't want to play those games.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play games where the action I put in leads to an outcome. I don't care how long it takes a lot of time. That's probably the biggest difference. But it does lead to an outcome.
Right. And if you don't have that internal confidence and the ability to go through and have that conversation, and again, if you're a single person, your numbers can be wildly different.
Yeah. I think, though, the frame for that conversation is not, honey, well, I'm saying this in a spouse reference, but it should really be about yourself.
Yeah.
Is what does it cost? It's the same mindset. What is it costing me the next 3 years, 5 years to get this? What is it costing me the next 60 years of our life to be dependent on a different industry and dependent on a different employer,
Mhm.
right? I'm not in charge of my own schedule. Hopefully we have enough saved up for retirement. What is the real cost of that? It's massive.
Mm-hmm.
It's your whole life. So
And-
that's
and
the
yeah.
conversation.
Why are there so few successful people? And it comes back a lot probably to agency. Like, if you don't believe that you have control over your situation, which goes back to a mindset thing, that you're probably not going to continue to take control of your situation because you don't feel like it's something that no matter how much effort you put in, that you'll actually have an outcome that is certain.
Yeah, and we can get into the nature nurture
Yeah.
part of this.
But the reason I bring that up is just to say, like, the go for it action phase also has to come with a change in mindset, but also has to come with a lot of expectation setting that's going to suck. The outcomes can be drastic and wild, but most people aren't going to go through it. So why should we expect that they would?
Because they tell themselves that they want it.
Because they think it's easier than it is. Because they're not willing to have the conversations, either with themselves first, and then once they've convinced themselves of it, with somebody else.
Yeah.
At least that's current mindset that I'm thinking about when it comes to this.
Yeah. I guess I'm different then.
You are, but that's why you sit in the seat you're in, right? You have to be a little cuckoo to try to like build.
Yeah, you
a
have to be
business.
nuts.
You have to be a little cuckoo to try to build a business because of the amount of shit you're going to eat.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But with every fiber of my being, I know that it will be successful. Why do I know that it will be successful? Because I will never quit. Never. I don't care how long this takes. That's the difference.
And that's really important to like tell everyone else.
You can't defeat me because I'll just never quit. right?
That is the key, right?
Yeah.
And what does Alex Hormozy say about like it's the goal of the game is to stay in the game?
Yeah.
And as long as you're playing the game and staying in the game, you're still having a chance of winning. It's the moment you stop playing the game that you lose.
Yep.
But that uncertainty for people's tough. The timeline and the uncertainty of the timeline is tough, but you're so resolute, right? But it's about what's the mindset that's required to be successful. It's that.
Yeah. So I think that's a lot. That gives people a good primer of something to think about for themselves and go into that deep thought of like, what do I really want and what am I willing to sacrifice?
Mm-hmm.
Let's end here with some actionable steps because this is all like really high level, right? The key to this, guys, is if you're square one and you're like, I'm not really happy where I'm at, but maybe I have mild discomfort or whatever, you have to chunk down. What's a small win? What's one thing you could do today to work towards that thing? Is it talk to one seller? Maybe you need to make one seller call. And then the next day you'll make two. And then maybe for the first 3 months you talk to 5 sellers or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But chunk down. You got to take one step. I don't care if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? That is the action step that you can take today to start working towards that thing. It really is. And then each day you do a little bit more or the same. But you don't go days where you don't do anything because that's when you fall back into the zone of being uncomfortable. So you really have to ask yourself, like, how bad do you want it? I can tell you when I'm not in a mood to cold call sellers because, yeah, I'm not a robot and nobody actually enjoys cold calling. Let's just keep it real.
Mm-hmm. I
enjoy the benefits, the amount of money that cold calling makes me and the benefits that come with it because it's a low cost of entry, right? And I get to work on my skills and I become a better closer, which makes future me more money. But there are days when I don't feel like doing it. And you know what I ask myself? Here's my self-talk. Well, Ryan, you said you wanted financial freedom. You said you wanted time freedom to be able to do whatever you wanted. And you said you really like to travel, so you want to be anywhere in the world whenever you want to. Is that still the case? Do you really want it? Guess what? I'm clicking that freaking call button, man. That's it. That's my frame that I use for myself when I'm feeling like this friction.
That's great. It's because you have a big why. And you can harken back to that again and again and again and again.
So if you don't have a big why, here's a useful frame. What would my future self think? I'm 65 years old. What do I wish I would have done with my life? That is a really useful frame for you to start figuring out, what do I really want? Because I think that's step one. If you don't have a why or know what it is, that is really the frame that you need to think about. And it's not going to be an overnight thing. You're not going to listen to this episode and think like, oh, I got it right away. Light bulb went on. Oh, I know now, right? For me, it took multiple years of that, working a corporate job to really be like, what do I really want? You know? Mm-hmm. And then it took a little bit of pain to really like kick me in the ass and go for it.
Yeah, we all kind of need some activation energy.
Yes. What's another useful frame to leave the listeners with for this episode?
When you're practicing something, just don't expect there to be a result. That's all you're doing is practicing. And so by putting in the daily action, and you can gamify it, and you can make it anything as an accomplishment, as long as it's action toward the goal, you are going to set yourself up and stack the proof to get closer. And so, like, we talk about this a lot in our morning meetings where, like, it's impossible for me to bring on a new hire and look back a month later and say, you've had less cold calls, you've done less conversations, and you're worse now. Because it's just not true, because I have a stack of calls and I have a stack of recordings and I have a stack of evidence that justify something else. Never have I had somebody come on the team, or myself included, and achieve the results they expected within the first 30 days. When I say that, I mean like where they actually thought they would be regardless of what the KPI said. They've always fallen short of that. But that doesn't mean that they didn't get better. And so like it is taking step one and then just repeating it consistently.
Love it. Well, let's end it there. Guys, drop a comment below. Why don't you hit the like button if you agree with me? Why don't you comment below if you agree with Corey on...
Or the down button.
No, don't click the down button. No. But yeah, comment below, guys, your thoughts. If you agree with Corey, smash the like button if you agree with me, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.